All right, so week one of our series, More Like Jesus, you kind of walked us through and laid the foundation of what it means to not just believe in Jesus, but rather become like him.
Yes.
And to be transformed more and more into people who kind of reflect his character and who he is to all the people around us. And so that was great. But week two, you kind of took us a little bit deeper and looked at a more specific area where we can become more like Jesus, right? So you kind of talked about the idea that if we want to become more like Jesus, then we have to learn to surrender like him. And so that was a great message. Yeah. Loved it. I know not just for me, but for a lot of different people that it hit close to home. It hit you hard, hit you right in the gut. And so messages on surrender usually do that, but you really hit the head of the nail.
We launched hard, didn't we?
Yes.
We went, hey, we're going to become more and more like Christ, and we went right for it.
Hey,
right?
but we're here for it. We're here for it.
That's
so, but something you said on Sunday, I really, really loved it, and I kind of want to maybe ask you a question about it, just a thought that I had. But you said that in your message that real surrender is revealed when obedience becomes costly. And maybe people at home, when they hear that, they already got the chills like they did yesterday, because it is really, really real. But my question to you is, and this is a thought that I had, why does surrender always, or if not always, most of the time, have to cost us something? Like, why is that the case?
Yeah. This is a really interesting one when you think about the cost of being a Christ follower. And it really does. It comes down to, why does it have to cost us something? And I think at the end of the day, the simplistic answer for it, right? To oversimplify it is to say it's because God wants all of us. Now let's take that a whole lot deeper, right? And there's so many great biblical examples of this. But at the end of the day, trust is costly, surrender is costly. And it's because of things like just Bible. Let's look at Matthew chapter 6. I've got my Bible open here. In verse 24, no one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money, right? So what's Jesus saying here? At the end of the day, we as human beings only have capacity for one Lord, right? We don't have capacity to serve two masters. Right? We can only serve one. And so in many ways, God wants all of us. So what's the testing ground? What's the proving ground? So I'll say often that the gospel is simple, but it's not easy. Right? Like we try to, the two problems we have with the gospel is either we try to make it complex, which it's not. It's not complex. It's very simple, but it's not easy. So we either try and make it too complex or we try to make it easy, right? And so what happens is we either become religious and judgmental, or we become soft and watered down, right? At the end of the day, we don't want either of those. We want to be in the middle, which is to say the gospel is simple but not easy. Surrender is simple but not easy.
Yeah.
And surrender, the cost of it will prove your loyalty. So, I mean, think about you're married.
Yeah.
Right? And you just had your first child.
We did.
Right? Okay.
We did.
So you got baby Jesse now. Is there anything you wouldn't do for your son?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Except, never mind. We're not going to get into that. Maybe some funny things, but
but think about it. How long have you been married?
It'd be 3 years this November.
3 years this November, right?
Crazy.
So congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
But is there anything you wouldn't do for your wife?
Absolutely not.
Right? You will do things for your wife that you wouldn't do for anybody else.
For sure.
You will care for your wife in ways that you won't care for anyone else. Same thing for your son in different levels.
Right.
Okay, so it's the same thing for God.
Yeah.
Right? It's the reality is that if God is Lord of our lives, if Jesus is Lord and Savior, we don't have capacity for two, right? We don't have capacity. It's just one of those things where He is going to test the sacrifice, and if He's Lord, it's not a big deal, right? That's where the story of the rich young ruler is so powerful for us. Because when you look at this story, and this guy rolls up to Jesus and he says, "Hey, listen, I've fulfilled all the commandments. I've done it all.
Yeah.
I still feel a little shallow." I mean, he doesn't say this,
Right.
but you could say, like, if you've done it all, why is he asking this question? Right?
Right.
What else do I got to do?
Right.
Which, to me, and again, this is just my own little bit of conjecture, maybe. But I think he's probably thinking, I've done it all, and I still feel like
Maybe
there's got to be more.
Right,
You know.
right.
So what else? What else can I do? Jesus, knowing his heart, looks at him and says, "Here's what I want you to do. I want you to sell all your possessions, give it to the poor, and come and follow me." And bro immediately goes,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Hold on, time out." And what's he do? He walks away sad.
Yeah.
Right? Now, that's what this conversation is about. If you want Jesus to be Lord, and he asks you at some point to give up something, that's the test. So you ask, why does it have to cost something? It's because it's the test of our heart. You will sacrifice for your wife. You will sacrifice for your kids. Later on in life, here's what's going to happen for you and Jesse, is that you're going to want to go out to dinner with your family. And you may be like, man, I want steak. You know, I'm in the mood for steak. And Jesse's going to say, hey, can we go get Cane's?
Are you speaking from experience?
Yes. And so, right? And you're going to go, okay, let's go get Cane's. Why? Because you're going to surrender that to him because you love him.
Yeah.
In many ways, when Jesus is Lord of our lives, you'll do the same thing. It's the reality that it's the testing of our faith is when it becomes costly. So trust is revealed, right?
Yeah.
When our sacrifice becomes costly. If it was easy, then everybody would do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
For sure.
It's not about being easy. It's about living a life that says, Jesus, you are my number one. You are my Lord. And if you're going to be Lord, then I'm going to give you everything. And here's the other side. Here's the flip side of it that I talked about. But we don't have to be afraid of that.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people are so afraid of that reality. But let's remember a couple things, that God knows our hearts. He created us. The Bible says he knows how many hairs are on our head. You know, he knew us before we were formed, right? So God knows us. He wants what's best for us. He's there for us. For crying out loud, he sacrificed his son on the cross to have a relationship with us. You know what I mean? Like think of what God has proven over time for us. Why would we be afraid of what he asks us to do?
Yeah.
Knowing that in many ways, our greatest experiences in life, the greatest understanding of God, the greatest sense of joy and peace and fulfillment is found in our relationship with the Lord. If he's asking you to go a little deeper in that, why would we be afraid of that?
Yeah.
Because most likely behind that sacrifice is going to be a greater sense of joy, a greater sense of peace, a greater sense of fulfillment, a greater relationship with the Lord. So what are we afraid of?
Yeah.
Right? But we are. We're
so
totally
good.
afraid of
For
it,
sure.
right? We're so
For
afraid
sure.
of it. But if Jesus is Lord, that's what it's going to be costly. It's
sure.
going to cost us a little bit, right?
Yeah. Okay. Such good thoughts. I love that. I love that idea. I want to hit on something that you said though a minute ago. You said that God knows our hearts, right? He made them. He gave us the ability to feel things and to desire things, and He knows that, and He knows the things that we desire. He knows the things that we feel. And so, a verse that I thought of when you said that was Psalms 37:4. But it says this: "Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." How does that play into this whole conversation? Because surrender doesn't necessarily line up with the desires of your heart sometimes. So how does that play into it?
Oh, man, it seems like conflict, doesn't it?
For sure.
It feels like at face value, you look at that and you go, ooh, there's conflict here,
Yeah.
right? There's a little bit of tension here. Here's the reality of it. And it goes back to a little bit about what we talked about last week. But the reality of this is, let's ask ourselves the question, right? What are your desires?
Yeah.
What are your desires? Like let's just list them. What are some of the desires that we have in our life?
You could say to have a nice house.
Oh, there you go.
That's
A lot of
desire.
people would be
have
like,
that.
yeah, I would like to have a nice house, like have
Yeah.
a nice job,
Yeah.
have enough money to kind of be comfortable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Desires of our heart. I want to have, for those who are single, I want to be married, right? For those who don't have kids, I want to have kids,
For
right?
sure.
You look at all those desires that we would have,
Yeah.
and you think about those. Where do those come from? Right? So often, the desires that we talk about in our hearts, or what we say are in our hearts, are really more about in our mind. It's more perspective. They're a little bit more American desires, right? It's I want to have a nice house. I want to be comfortable in life. I want to drive a car that's dependable. I want to,
Yeah.
have friends, and those can be a little bit more American in nature, right?
I see that.
What we're seeing here, so those are probably more of we might say the desires of our heart, but they're probably more the desires of our mind, right? They're
Okay.
probably a little bit more saying, hey, gosh, if I was to make a list, here's the top 10 things that I want. Here are my desires. I really want to, I love it when you think about Solomon. And Solomon could have anything, and what he asked for, wisdom.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, hey,
crazy.
He got it right.
Crazy.
He got it right. He's like, hey, give me wisdom. Not very many of us talk about the desires of our heart being wisdom.
For sure. Not a lot of us would pick that.
We go with, the material things, the feeling things.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that's where the disconnect with this verse is. The desires of our heart are the desires that God gave us. Right? So sometimes I think we run from the true desires of our heart because our minds get in the way.
Got you.
Right? So God has given us, I say it to everyone, Romans 12:6, God has given each one of us gifts and abilities. I also believe that God has given us passions, dreams, right? That He's created us for something, to do good works, Scripture tells us, right? You've been created to do good works. Those good works, the things that He's created us for, I think sometimes we hide from those or run from them because of our minds get in the way.
For sure.
And so because we're afraid of them, we think, oh man, if I do this, then I'm going to give up this, right? And it's the tension between our heart and mind, not as much about desires and what God is giving us. So when you look at this, here's the reality of it. The desires of our heart are the things that God gives us. And so for us, it's about leaning into what God has for us and allowing God to, well, let's read it. Let's read in Scripture. Yeah. So let's go to Romans 12 again. Okay. I read this Sunday, right?
Yep.
And Romans, got to go faster.
We'll get there. There you go.
Boom. Getting closer. Romans 10, 12. Here we go.
Boom.
Now listen to what this verse, Romans 12, 1 and 2. Memory verse. Memorize it.
For sure.
Study it, right? I'm going to read it here. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Let them be a living and holy sacrifice, the kind that He will find acceptable. This is the truly way to worship Him. Now listen to verse 2. And now think about the conversation we just had. Yeah. The question you just asked. Don't copy the behaviors and customs of this world. So for so many of us that think about God will give us the desires of our heart. If you were to really be honest, take a piece of paper, pad and pen, and start writing down the desires of your heart. And then evaluate them through this lens of the behavior and customs of this world. And how many of them would be closely tied to the behaviors and customs of this world. So what he's saying here is don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. So again, changing the way you think. What's he saying here? Our minds get in our way.
For sure.
Sometimes the way we think is the problem. Rich young ruler. I promise you, knowing what I know about God, if that guy in that moment goes, all right, Jesus, I'm in, right? And he says, I'm going to sell all my stuff, give the poor, and I'm in. I can only imagine what his life would have looked like after that. You know what I mean? Like stories would be told about, that's what I believe. I believe that wholeheartedly. But his mind got in the way. He thought, oh man, I can't have a lot. That's my dependence. That's my safety net. That's my future. That's my, whatever it may be. And I'm not saying that we should be unwise. I'm just saying that we should be able to follow God when He calls. And sometimes He asks us to sacrifice. And so let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. And then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good, pleasing, and perfect. So we think about God's will for our lives, right? Good, pleasing, and perfect. We will know that when we allow God to transform our minds, right? When we allow God to transform our minds, now our minds are no longer in the way for us to follow God with our heart. Right? So that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I love that. And even looking at my own life, my mind gets in my way a lot. And I've even been in situations where I've had to make really tough decisions. Me and Kylie together, we sit down and we do the same thing. We write the pros and cons of each option. And we look at this paper and we're like, this is the clear option. But I love that idea that we're not thinking with our hearts or the hearts that God's given us. We're often thinking with our minds, and our minds are fed often by what the world and the customs of this world, like Romans 12 are saying. And so if we're looking at it through that lens, we will always go with what our minds thinks is best. But I love that idea of God kind of shaping and changing the way that we think through our hearts. Because if God is the Lord of our hearts, then the desires of our hearts will be His desires at the end of the day.
And
That's
our
so
desires
cool.
will be His desires, and they'll line up.
For sure.
Let me walk you through something I do. I often tell people when they come to me for advice, right? They'll come to me like, "Oh, Pastor, here's what we're going through. Here's what we're wrestling with. We don't know what to do." I often tell them, "Listen, I don't give advice. It's not what I'm here for. I don't give advice." Because my advice outside of the Lord giving me a word, which I would tell you, boy, I really feel like God gave this a word for you, right? Outside of that, my advice is nothing more than a math problem. It's your situations and circumstances, the outcomes you're looking for, and I'm just doing a math equation going, okay, 1 + 2 = 3, therefore you should do this.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And we do that so often, even with your pros and cons, right?
Yeah.
I did pros and cons, but let me just tell you something. Those are all very important disciplines to do and go through. But at the end of the day, let me tell you what matters, what God is telling you to do. So I tell people all the time, I don't give advice, I offer perspective. I'm not telling you what to do. Why? Because I don't want you on either side 2 years from now looking back and saying, Pastor Tom gave me bad advice. Right?
Yeah.
Because maybe it didn't work out the way you thought it did or should have, right?
Yeah.
And so therefore, no. It's not about me. It's about what is God asking you to do. And I also tell people, when you follow God, it may or may not look like you think it's going to look like. But can I tell you, just because it doesn't work out the way you think it should doesn't mean you're out of God's will.
Yeah.
Right?
Good.
So often we think that everything's supposed to be easy and good. Pick your story in Scripture. I did this yesterday. Pick your story. Literally, pick your story and tell me that there wasn't struggle and sacrifice and tension in the midst of that.
Yeah.
But yet, God at the end
came through,
right? So sometimes we think, well, if I just follow God, then everything's going to be easy.
Yeah.
That's not the promise.
Right.
What we're going to learn as we follow God is that He is faithful and that no matter what we face. So for me, I don't give advice. I tell people all the time, here's the deal. I can walk you through this. I'll offer some perspective. I'll give you some if I shoulda, coulda, wouldas, I can give you all those things. But at the end of the day, here's what matters more than anything in the world. What is God asking you to do? What is God asking you to do? When we were talking about you moving to Sandusky, right?
Yeah.
How many times? Listen, here's what matters. That you hear from God.
I think you started every phone call with that thing. Every single phone call.
Here's what matters. What's God saying to you?
Yeah.
Because that is everything.
For sure.
If not, our minds begin to work out math problems.
100%.
Right? And we start looking at the behaviors and customs in this world. And we start thinking, well, this is a good opportunity for me. This will build my resume. This will do, right? Listen. That's, when I was in the district office, national office, people would say, hey, how'd you get that job? And I'd say, I don't know. I don't know. God called me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but, what'd you do? I did nothing. When I was youth pastor, I tried to be the best youth pastor I could be, and then God called me to the district office. And when I was a student ministries director for the state of Ohio, I tried to be the best student ministries director I could and made decisions I felt like God put on my heart, which conflicted with a lot of decisions that the state of Ohio thought. And I got a lot of pushback on that, right? But hey, at the end of the day, God showed up. God worked out. A lot of great stories, testimonies. Went to the national office, same thing. And people go, "How did you get that job?" I'm like, "I don't know. I didn't network for it.
Yeah.
I didn't politic for it. I didn't turn in resumes. In fact, both of those jobs I wasn't looking for, and really I didn't want. At the first time both those jobs were offered to me, I went, hold on, Tom, I don't know. I gotta go pray about this.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know. To where a lot of people be like, what? Yes, I'm in. I don't even have to think about it. Right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the math problem, the way we think, the behaviors and customs of this world is not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is what is God's will for your life? And what is God saying to you? And what is God leading to you? And this all comes into this. This is what Jesus, being Lord of our life, looks like. This is the sacrifice. And sometimes it's just the sacrifice of the way we think.
Yeah.
Like, get that out of the way and follow God because He is faithful.
Yeah,
Right?
I love that. I think a lot of people look at your story and how you told your journey from being youth pastor here to in the district office to eventually the national office, and seeing how you've really trusted God through that process and gave God really the control of the path that He was taking you on. If we look at stories like that, we look at stories, you said name your story, we look at all these stories in the Bible and these moments where God really came through for these characters in the Bible or these people in the Bible. And I think a lot of us, and me too, I find myself in this place where I'm like, man, I really want that moment that they had with God. I really want that moment of trust. I really want that moment of faith, that step of faith that they've taken. But a lot of the time we allow, and you hit on this in your message, we allow the control that we want to hold on to prevent us from taking that next step. Yeah. How do we, because you described it as a tension that we carry, how do we get rid of the tension of wanting to trust God, but also wanting the control of our lives? How do we rid ourselves of that? How do we overcome that?
Yeah. I think it's like anything. It's a discipline. It's a muscle that we develop.
Okay.
It's developed over time.
Gotcha.
So you'll hear me say all the time, I don't think we practice following Jesus enough. Right. I think so many times we look at following Jesus as a pass-fail type class. Right? Like you either are or you're not. I think there's more grace in our walk with the Lord. I think there's more opportunity, and I think there's this growth period, right? I think when you look at some of the stories of the Old Testament, look at some of the struggles of those people, I think what you're seeing is God developing their character. You're seeing God develop them so that he could eventually accomplish what he wanted to accomplish. We've got to give ourselves that same level of grace that we're not going to go from 0 to 100 in one altar call.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And
Thank God.
You're right. Yeah. I think that's what we expect. And we put that on ourselves. So how do we get to that place? It's one foot in front of the other, one day at a time. For us, I would encourage everybody to start small.
Yeah.
Right? So when you think about Mandy and I resigning our positions, I was the director of student discipleship for the National Youth Ministries. Mandy was the director of girls ministries. I mean, let's just call it what it was. Those are pretty nice gigs.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like those are retirement gigs.
Right.
We could have probably sat there for the rest of our lives and, rolled that out, traveled the country, traveled the world, really. Mandy traveled all over the world. I mean, oh man, the opportunities, it was awesome. The opportunities were just amazing. But here's the deal. What does God want for your life? And so when you learn how to follow God's call, that when he puts on your heart to move back to small town USA, to, a town that is 25,000 people, to a county that's about 85, 90,000 people, right? There's a whole lot of people around the nation, a lot of pastors that would look at that and go, hold on, time out, doesn't make sense.
You're nuts.
Right? That's crazy talk. Like after your resume, right? I got a pretty killer resume, right? Like I could go about anywhere. I mean, why would I take a church that was, maybe 200 at that point? Come to a struggling town. Like why would I do that?
Yeah.
Because God called us. And so because over time I've seen God be faithful in my life, in that moment for us to resign those positions, and again, we talk about this, and I don't mean this, toot my horn or anything, but I mean, we cut our household income in half to move home.
Yeah.
Right? Like, who does that?
Yeah.
Well, we do. Why? Because God is faithful.
For sure.
And I don't, my life is not determined by my income.
Yeah.
Right? God is faithful. But how do you get to that spot is what you're asking, right? How do you get there?
That's a huge jump.
How do you get there? It's just a little bit at a time. One moment at a time. So I go back to, here's probably the biggest moment in my life. I go back to when I was youth pastor here at this church. I've told this story a couple of times, but there was a very, very difficult season that we were going through in that. And in many ways, I went home almost every day. And here's the phrase that I would say to myself. It's not supposed to be like this. It's not supposed to be like this. So I had 3 friends that I talked to on a regular basis. One was the DYD at the time. One was a youth pastor at Bowling Green, at Day Spring Assembly. And one was a junior high pastor at Toledo Calvary, right? And so they're just 3 friends. We would talk all the time. They were 3 of my closest friends at that time. And I would talk to them. And I would share with them what I'm going through. And all of them were kind of like Job's friends, They were great.
Yeah.
And they were caring for me. And all of them would say, Tom, it's time to go. It's time to go. It's time to go. It's time to leave. And they were right. If we were doing the math problem, it was time for me to leave, right?
The answer, yeah.
And it was really hard, too, because then I had the DYD friend of mine going, hey, I know the churches that are looking. There's a church in Dayton that would hire you tomorrow. And they got our own youth building. You know what I mean? Like, he's literally just rolling out these ideas and these options. He's like, listen, you give me the word And I mean, that's a done deal. It's a done deal. They'll hire you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I promise you. But when I went home at night and I prayed, God said it's not time to go. So I could have listened to my friends, right? Who were just doing math problems.
For sure.
Right?
And on paper, we're giving you the right answers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were giving me good advice.
Yeah.
And in many ways, there are godly people. They love Jesus.
Yeah.
They're godly people. They are good mentors, incredible leaders, right? This is valuable advice.
For sure.
The problem was, it wasn't what God was asking me to do. So even though these guys had good advice for me based on the math equations of my life, Jesus was saying, now's not the time. So we didn't. We just hung out. And I've said it many times, if we would have left then, I wouldn't be here today. Right? The things that God is doing in this community here, I would not be a part of that. I feel like in that moment I would have changed the trajectory of my life, right? And so it was that moment when I learned I've got to learn to listen to God's voice.
Yeah.
Because even just walking through that season, and then when that season was over and what happened at the other side of that season, and just seeing God's faithfulness in my life, I went, oh, I learned a lesson. I learned that lesson. I could tell you multiple stories, but I think in our lives, it really just comes down to little things. It comes down to you praying and hearing God's voice. And maybe it's something like making a pledge to the Hope Initiative.
Yeah.
For some people, $50 a month to missions could feel like moving mountains.
Right.
But if God puts that on your heart, that's step one. And here's what you do. You stay obedient to that. And it's going to cost you something.
Yeah.
And you give $50 a month to missions, right? And then what happens is you'll see God's faithfulness.
Yeah.
And you'll see things show up. And you'll go, oh. And then what happens, you just keep walking. And then what happens is God will call you to do something else. And you take that next step and you see God's faithfulness. You see God's faithfulness. And so how do you get to this spot in your life? I think it's literally just one step at a time, one day at a time. And you start small. You have to give yourself grace to grow. You have to, like I said, in order for us to become like Jesus, we have to learn to sacrifice like Jesus. I think there's an on-ramp for learning how to sacrifice, because we too have to, for lack of a better word, test it. I think we have to practice. I think we have to practice being a Christ follower sometimes. We just got to give ourselves some grace to know that, hey, I may get it right sometimes. I may get it wrong sometimes, but it's going to be okay. And I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to learn from my mistakes, keep moving forward. But that's how you do it. You literally just take one decision at a time.
For sure.
You come to a spot where you go, today, God, you've asked me to do this, and I'm going to do it. And it may be something like fast your lunch.
Yeah.
I'm going to fast at lunchtime. And so my coworkers are like, what are you doing? I'm fasting. You're doing what? That's weird. Fasting, I'm going to spend some time with Jesus during lunch. And that may be I shouldn't say it. That is a sacrifice.
For sure.
That's a sacrifice for a lot of people. Like, man, to draw that kind of attention to yourself, oh my goodness, that's a sacrifice. And then you see God's faithfulness, right? And what happens in your life is it grows, and then you become more and more like Christ. That's
cool.
how you do it. That's how it goes.
And thank God that he gives us those little opportunities to test his faithfulness before we get to those big jumps.
Right.
Like you said, there's no way that you would have been able to make that jump from Missouri back to here if you hadn't taken those little steps. And so
For sure.
I'm so grateful that we serve a God who gives us those opportunities to test his faithfulness, to take those little steps in our walks with him before we have to take the big leaps. So it's so cool. So thank you so much for this.
Absolutely, man.
This talk, but really this challenge for us. I think it's going to be awesome.
It's good stuff. So we've got 9 weeks of this one.
Yep.
So we've got 7 more challenges, right? 7 more of these disciplines, these characteristics to becoming like Christ. And it's going to be a challenging series.
It is.
But it's going to be a fun one.
It'll be worth it.
That's right.